Welcome, folks, to the latest episode of PCCI Pod. Again, today it's just me and Aditya. Sad for you, there is no special guest today, unless you consider the both of us special, which we are. Thank you so much. How are you, Aditya?
I'm good.
Yeah,
Uh,
I have a question for you before we start this podcast. How do you like your vada pav?
I like my vada pav without imli ka chutney, which Sachin Tendulkar seems to like.
और ग्रीन चटनी भी कुछ बोला नहीं एक यार
ग्रीन चटनी चलता है यार, बट उसको ड्राई चटनी नहीं पसंद है
रेड
तेंदुलकर
वाला
को
ड्राई
मोहित.
चटनी वो मुझे सबसे ज्यादा पसंद है.
Tendulkar doesn't seem to like. But Tendulkar का vada pav, I think, is wet. I don't think that makes for a crunchy vada pav. Sorry, Tendlia.
So I mean, this is blasphemy, man.
You think we'll receive more fan mails?
I mean, how? Ah, you are directing me to that. Basically, I, s- I want to go to that.
I'm a I've grown up being a Tendulkar fan of his batting, not of his vada pav though.
I have grown up being a Tendulkar fan for his batting. I have loved Tendulkar. I've hated Tendulkar, and then I've realized that I really love Tendulkar. Basically, when you grow up, right, in your late
Huh.
teens, there, in my late teens rather, there came a phase where when people say कि वो खुद के लिए खेलता है टीम के लिए नहीं खेलता you start you for a yeah basically अंकल जी वाला yeah so sometimes you kind of start to believe it but इतना तो कह सकता हूँ कि तेंदुलकर जो है सेफ खेलता है क्या बोलते हो
Batting maybe or
लाइफ
life
में भी
maybe.
एग्जैक्टली तो
but but you didn't have this Kartikeya Date level pathological hate for Tendulkar.
द- दाते
That will be some story. I'm going to invite Date once and
दाते
ask him.
एंड गांगुली
Ganguly. Huh, sorry.
I think I don't know why Date feels that way for Ganguly. I mean, I broadly agree to a lot of things he says. I also agree to the fact that maybe after 2002, at some point after 2002, Ganguly really did not deserve a place in the playing 11 in both tests and ODIs.
How you say that he scored so many hundreds in the 2003 World Cup?
Against who?
Kenya, Namibia.
Exactly. I mean, see, I even I'll grant you even this 2003 World Cup maybe let's like there is you could make a like imagine you had Lakshman in the team instead of Ganguly in 2003 World Cup. But what Kartikeya Date feels for Ganguly is something that I just don't understand
Beyond.
because it's like he tries to bring out stats specifically so that he could diss on Ganguly. So I will tell you like how much I agree and maybe then you will say that so Steve was Australian team okay now keep the team as
Hmm.
is. Steve was the captain, make anyone else the captain. I think the team performs exactly the same way.
Hmm.
Now take Steve Waugh and make him the captain of the then New Zealand side, and I think the team do you think, I mean, do you think there is a huge difference between Stephen Fleming and Steve Waugh as captain?
I don't think there is a huge difference there, but where a captain makes a bigger difference is, say, identifying players and sticking by them. I think that genuinely matters. That is something that changed during Ganguly's era, was that a lot of the younger folks who came through, I think he stuck by them for a while before the results started showing overseas and stuff like that. Obviously, we didn't win a lot of games, but compare what he had to begin with and what he ended up with. Uh, he built a side. The results might not have been comparable then. If you just look at raw statistics and look at his numbers versus Kohli's numbers, obviously it doesn't stand up. But I think something he did do was the core that was built around 2003 to 2006, whenever he was around. I think largely a lot of them ended up being in the side which became the test number one and the World Cup winning side of 2011. I think that is somewhere he does deserve credit.
I am just saying I will have to do something like a Kartikeya Date and figure out how many matches did Ganguly under his captainship uh, give Sehwag or Khurasia and then discarded them, something like that.
If you consider, say, 2000 as the start, that is the start of Ganguly's era, right? This post India South Africa series. So the last series, the first series that he took over, we had Jadeja, Robin Singh, Azhar. That was the core of the one day side. So I would say Ganguly's era definitively begins in that ICC knockout of 2000, where you have Zahir and Yuvraj coming in, and you look at the same people in the end up winning the World Cup in 2011. So there are certain things he definitely did right, as opposed, and in fact Ganguly, in fact Dhoni, when he became the captain, the core of his test and one day side was basically Ganguly's side. The side of 2003, half of them ended up in the 2011 World Cup sides. Is it completely fair to a captain to judge him by just the raw numbers when it comes to identifying newer talent? Think of it. So how many players came through the system then versus now? I think that's the question that one has to deal. And there is no definitive answer to this. But a part of why I feel I'm justifying Ganguly's this thing is because of the context in which he takes over. Right, you have the backdrop of match fixing which happens in 2000. The point that he took over at that point, which was possibly the lowest in Indian cricket's history, and to go from there to actually putting the faith back in Indian cricket and actually ending up winning a few games here and there overseas. Uh, if you completely switch off the context, it might look like any other captain, but you have to compare what happened immediately before that, which is why in a lot of people's heads, uh, Ganguly is larger than life as a captain, even when compared to Dhoni. It's very important.
Fair enough. Fair enough. On Reddit, there is a user by the name Sil underscore Batta. Um, and he had a comment on our episode with Ronak Kapoor. I will read not all of the
Mhm.
comment, but some parts of it, and I'd like for the both of us to respond to it. So first of all, he it looks like he heard all the full episode, which I really appreciate. And yeah, exactly. Thank you so much. He did not like it much, but I hope that changes
Thanks
in
for.
the future. One thing that he says is that we're typical self-hating NRIs, and we were blaming Indian fans for supporting India. So
Mm.
since you were not in the episode, I would like to put forth my side. I was not saying that I blame Indian fans for supporting India. I support India. I'm sure you support India. I was saying that compared to other and in fact, not even that, I was not even comparing Indian fans to anybody. I was comparing myself and some other people you or Nishant, who I follow
Or
cricket with.
ourselves from 10
Yeah,
years back,
exactly.
our
Yeah.
own versions.
And I feel that when I look at cricket now, I look at many different things, uh, and not just how the Indian team did. How the Indian team does is still important for me, and I enjoy them playing well, of course. But I also enjoy watching a Rabada bowl. I also enjoy watching Kane Williamson bat. Uh, and that is something that I feel, and again, I could be completely inaccurate because this is something that I feel, but I think that has added more enjoyment to my cricket watching experience. That is what I was trying to say. If there was a specific statement that I made that sounded like I'm saying that Indian uh, fans only love Indian cricket, I was not saying that. Having said that, when we talk about the whole phenomena of Pakistani YouTube channels propping up and pandering to the Indian fans, I mean, we have to agree that there is a market. There is a market that wants to listen good things about Indian cricketers. We have to agree that there are fan clubs or fan bases and fan accounts on Twitter that really go after you if you criticize an Indian player. Uh,
Not to say that Bangladesh and Pakistan don't have those
Exactly. And
fans,
so
by
this
the
is a
way.
South Asian trait, I think, but
Mm.
can we really
Mm.
deny it? So that was one thing that was said by him in his comment on Reddit. The other thing that he asked a question about while asking Ronak a question on foreign influence, said that you had a problem with team management and coaching staff having only Indians. Can you elaborate? So let me just quickly elaborate on that. Basically, what I was trying to say is that if you look at Indian cricket team's 2020 approach, you will see that, or even one day, for example, in the recently concluded World Cup, that we have been more conservative in our approach compared to other teams like England and Australia, and it is more glaring in 2020 when we talked about the last World Cup semi-final against West Indies. And I personally feel that one of the reasons for our approach being the same over a long period of time has been because all of our setup is Indian. So there is no outsider voice. And because there is no outsider voice, there is a lack of new ideas coming in. There is, yeah,
And who is and do we have any voice that challenges either Kohli or Shastri, who tend to speak in unison
yeah,
always?
exactly. And I'm glad actually to see the recent T20 series, especially the last two games in Australia, where against Sri Lanka, I'm sorry, where I feel that the Indian team has, in fact, even during the West Indies series, I felt that the Indian team has tried to do some experiments, especially sending someone like Dubey at number three. Again, Dubey as a cricketer, we can talk about his viability and everything, but the idea behind it is something that I appreciate. And that was what I meant. I thought, I still think that having some outsiders looking into the cricket, and I'd say the same for Australian or English team as well.
But they do this, right? So you very often have, even South Africa this year had
Yeah,
Amol Mazumdar as their batting consultant when they toured India. Australia had Sridhar and Sriram last year when they were touring. So it's not like other sides do not do this. So closing yourself out to any opinion from outside is also not something which works for you. And bear in mind, unlike the other cricketers, we do not play any T20 cricket outside of India except when we play international cricket. So unlike the Australians or the English who happen to play T20s in all these countries, and they are part of multiple different setups, right? So unlike a Kyron Pollard who will play for Trinbago today and Mumbai the next day, and then end up in whatever leagues in England and Big Bash and so on. So they have the luxury of playing under multiple team managements, multiple different coaches, which none of our cricketers do. So let us not underestimate the exposure that the others have over you. And look at how this turned around English cricket when it comes to white ball cricket. For a long time, they were so averse to sending their cricketers to play in India, and all their cricket used to be in England. So now that they are part of the IPL, it also seems to have, in the long run, freed
and
them up
I
as
mean,
batsmen.
don't you, and I'm talking to you and the listeners, don't you guys agree that there is something that the Indian cricket setup needs to think about? Because this team definitely deserves more ICC trophies than it has won since 2013. And there has to be a reason for that happening over and over again. And
And it is also a matter of I think we have spoken about this on this pod before. So it's also a matter of say if a side keeps winning a lot, unless you are like the absolute uh, beast of a side like the
Mhm.
Australian side of the 2000s, which this side honestly is not yet at that level, but they are still, I would say, slightly below a side of that stature. So when this kind of a side, especially in the current day and age, with other teams experimenting a lot in the long run, if you are the only side being conservative during the bilaterals, you end up winning a lot. But that one moment of failure which might happen at a knockout stage, these guys happen to freeze at that point, so they do not have any defense mechanisms when it comes to this 20 for 2, 20 for 3 situations on the big stage, which doesn't very often happen on the bilateral stage, because the bilateral stage there is also this additional cushion of
Mhm.
having those three other games as a backup. So I think if you fail more, in some sense it frees you up more.
And I completely agree, and I will just end with this, with saying this, that we we don't self-hate. I'd like to think that we should examine, and we should not just talk about all everything as great and good. There is definitely um,
In fact, the only reason some a fan would be critical is to see
exactly.
his or her side do better. So that is essentially the, because in the recent India South Africa series, as you just said, right? I wanted to just add. So in the Test series, when India was like around 20 for 3 in the final test, the only time we were in some a bit of trouble, right? I think at Ranchi. So that was the point where I actually enjoyed watching the Test match, because there was a challenge and the fast bowlers were bowling well and so on. So uh, as one evolves, like as a fan, it's not like you want your team to do badly, but you tend to want a lot of these games to be contests, which was not a case, which was not the case like 15 years back, when all you expect from every single game is the result. That's all you care about at that point. It is
Yeah.
completely different to you hating your side.
So, and with that answered, I think we could move to the next topic, the primary topic that we wanted to talk about for this episode, and that is the ICC Cricket Committee that has people like Andy Strauss and Anil Kumble as members. Proposed this idea
Mhm.
of having 4-day test matches instead of 5-day test matches, and this has generated
Mhm.
quite a buzz. Most players that I have read up until now have come out against it, and even Ravi Shastri has come out against it. But I think we should kind of weigh it. So first, I'll go to you, Aditya. What are your thoughts on 4-day tests?
But in theory, it sounds all good, given the fact that a lot of test matches these days do not go beyond 4 days in any case. So that is the argument being made, and the argument being made in favor of it is that it will free up a lot of days in the calendar for all the three formats to coexist. Probably it might help you have a lot of three test series, the very minimum. A lot of
Yeah.
countries these days have only two test series, right? So which makes it kind of meaningless. So if you freeze up a few days in the calendar, it might enable a few more three test series to be the norm. But having said all that, my biggest worry is how are you going, the practicality of it. Even now, because cricket in the subcontinent is played in the winter largely, it's I don't think we get 90 overs a day in the first place in the subcontinent. In a foggy Lahore or a foggy Delhi, how are you going to
How
get through
about
these 98 overs that
how
they
about
propose?
I'm just
That's my.
curious. What if instead of 98 it was 105 overs a
Hmm.
day? Would that have changed? I mean,
No, but how are you going to say cram in the 905 overs in a day when you have bad
but
light
that is not that is less
very often
about
in the subcontinent?
test match per se, and that's more about scheduling, right? Like if you have a test match in Delhi in March,
No, not the fielding,
um,
but
a
that's a.
test match in Delhi in
Uh-huh.
March will not have bad light as far as I can think.
But even then, fitting in 105 overs might be a bit of a stretch, right? In one day's cricket, unless you have a lot of spin bowling going on. So it tends to change the entire dynamics of the game also at some level, because the stamina of 90 overs a day the fast bowler should
Yeah.
have, like you will now have fast bowlers breaking down and stuff probably more often. So that is another bigger worry. So it's not just, it changes a lot of the physics of the sport in some sense, if I may use that word. So you have, I don't know. So that is something which I have a lot of issues with. Like, would it be, although on the surface it looks like a 4 day game is no different to a 5 day game, but will the dynamics of the sport be essentially the same?
So, few things to think about. It's not like we've not had 4-day tests, and I'm not talking about the recent past. Up until the 1980s, it
Mm-hmm.
was common to have a rest day after
Mm-hmm.
the third day in a test match, or after, yeah,
Yeah.
usually after the third day or a second day, and
Mm-hmm.
so that happened. Of course, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
the test matches ended in draws as well. So there's that. There's definitely less um, operating costs if a test match happens for 4 days as compared to 5. Um, there is all of the primary reason that I think is that they want to schedule a test match between Thursday and Sunday. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, test match done. Also,
Mm-hmm.
if we have to look at how many test matches in the recent past have ended on the fourth day to get an idea. Of course, like, and again, this is
We don't even have to look at that. Actually, what we should be looking at is how many test matches ended by
yeah.
tea on the fifth day, or just between lunch and tea on the fifth day. So that would essentially
Eh,
be a 98
yeah, I
overs
I
a
mean,
day,
recently
four
South
day
Africa,
test streak.
Zimbabwe played a test series for 4-day tests, right? And
Yeah, Ireland
a part
versus
of me
England was a
feels it's
4 day
unfair,
test again.
because England, Australia will never play. Like, I mean, if the rule changes, then the rule changes. But in general, they'll not play 4-day tests. So
Ashes won't be a 4 day
uh,
test for sure.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I mean, I think but the pros that they think are basically operating costs.
But I feel that'll have to then go back to the era where cricket in the subcontinent would be one day cricket would be a 50 over game in the subcontinent and a 60 over game elsewhere. I think it'll have to be something like that, because there is no way you can have 100 overs in the subcontinent in a day, given the over rates and everything else around it. Even in a good summer's day, I don't think you'll have daylight till 8 o'clock as you have in England. So unless of course you move towards more day night tests, which I don't see happening in the near future, which itself has a lot of challenges in the
What
Asian subcontinent
another
because of
argument,
dew
and
and
I'd
things
like
like
your
that.
thoughts on it, and I don't know if you've thought of it, but there is another argument that if the test matches are reduced to 4 days instead of five, the groundsmen will be more free to create pitches because they will not be under pressure for the pitches to last full 5 days. So there will be less roads and more lively pitches because it will be 4 days.
But I don't see it being a problem even otherwise these days. Look at the fraction of draws these days; it has come down drastically, right? So in the past 5 years, how many draws do you remember? Like days, as you said, matches don't even go to the fifth day. So I don't think that is anyway. You see very few roads, except the only roads I remember are these days in Australia, and very often flat pitches flattening out in New Zealand. So I think this is more of uh, England, Australia, New Zealand kind of a problem, as opposed to Asia, where test anyway the complaint is that tests do
Ah,
not go the whole 5 days. I can I can see this being a very
I can
divisive issue in international cricket,
it is
even
not
if it
really
goes
like
that way.
I can see that most people or most comments that I've read are against it. But I want to give it more thought personally. I like on first glance I don't really like the idea, honestly, because I'm used to 5-day tests and I'm used to imagining how things will be on the fifth day. There is also this part where I feel that teams like weaker teams against stronger teams will have more incentives to play defensively, exactly, because it's easier. Did but
Play out
India
for a draw.
Bangladesh, I mean, the series when there was no test that went to the fourth day even, right?
No, neither did the India South Africa. Mein
Having
one game
said
went to
that,
the fifth day. Apart from
if
that, none in the whole season went to
there
the
is a
fifth day
way
proper.
to have 105 or 110 overs in a day and you make the test 4 days, I could get on board. Simply because, go on, sorry.
But hmm, the only problem is like if you have test matches in a place where fast bowling is going to be the bulk of your bowling, uh, then 105 overs in a day might be a bit of a stretch. You don't want in the long run bowlers breaking down because they had to go for that extra
Y-
spell in the day. It
Yeah,
might be just one
I
extra
think
spell
it will.
per day,
I think if
as
this
you
were to
said.
happen, I think it will increase the value of
But
spinners. Again, uh, it's about strategy and how teams use strategy. But to your point, the whole idea is being proposed because they think that 5-day tests are less viable than 4-day tests, and I just find it. I think it a lot of the decisions
treating
that
it
have
like
been made
that.
in cricket recently, and when I say recently, I mean the last 2 decades, have been made not because fans want it, not because cricketers want it, but because broadcasters want it, and this is no different. And
Because I don't think there is any pitch from the fans which says that हमको 4 दिन का टेस्ट
I mean,
मैच
क्या
चाहिए
फर्क पड़ता? I
ऐसा.
mean, who is there who says that यार 5-day टेस्ट मैच इज टू लॉन्ग, इसको 4-day करेंगे तो मैं देखेगा? कौन है ऐसा?
Or in any case, most of your test match watching audience anyways follows it online or whatever. So I don't think that is the stakeholder part of your game. Those are the stakeholders who are demanding this for sure. One reason I can think of it is that with the English calendar being as cramped up as it is from next year or this year, now that you will have a 100 ball tournament, then you will have
which
the
we have to talk about after
T20.
this.
Yeah, so you'll have like a whole bunch of tournaments in England, and they want the calendar to be freed up further. So if you have seven test matches a day, it'll free up 7 days. Probably, uh, you can use that additional day to have that break between tests and so on. So it might free up the space for a few more of these circusy games. So that
I
is the only
think
reason I
what they are
can
thinking is that, let's say, and I'm giving you a random number here, but
think
let's say in a year there are Indian team plays 15 test matches, 12 test matches in a year. I'm just saying, if you free up 12 days, they can use those days to schedule more 2020. They can add, like, they can probably free up the IPL calendar more, something to that
for a
effect. I think.
mini IPL.
I don't know.
That part scares me. I heard this somewhere that they're planning a second IPL. We are venturing into game on air territory now. It's speculation and
No, no,
conspiracies.
there is
But
definitely discussions about a second IPL, which will be like a knockout FA
mm,
Shield Cup type thing. There has been discussions about it, but
mm, it's just
I
nauseating if that
I
happens.
think better than that, if for a moment, if I'm thinking about IPL, I think better than that,
Mm,
I think what they need to do is add two more teams in the IPL and make it 10 teams. IPL,
mm,
I think in the next few years, IPL should, it's generating enough money. So I think there is
mm.
definitely an opportunity for it to.
I'm definitely up for 4-day cricket being trialed more often. I don't think it will make a huge difference. Uh, at least to see whether you can fit in more than 90 overs a day. If that forces people to at least bowl 90 overs a day, then it automatically serves a purpose.
So, so another question to you. Going back to the Bangladesh series, Bangladesh played two test matches on 14th and 18th November, and then 22nd to 26th November. That was scheduled, 22nd to 26th, and 14th to 18th of November. Had the test been 14th to 17th November, and the second
Mm,
test, so that way the test would have ended on a Sunday, even if it had gone for all
mm,
4 days. Then you could have potentially had a day before. I think so. The next week, I think it was 20. Let me just see. But basically, so yeah, so then you could have potentially had a test match, second test match start on the 21st and end on the 24th
mm.
instead of 22nd and 26th.
So you can have two
And you
test
could have
matches. You can have two test matches
and
ending
you
on a
could have
Sunday.
potentially a third test match. Not
Mm,
I'm just saying, because you could potentially think of having like a test match that goes from 28th November to 1st December. Um, or
yeah.
you could have added two more 2020 games in the series.
Mm. Which is the most likely scenario of the lot. Yeah.
I so and this is my thing. Like, India will go to New Zealand next month, and
Mm.
we'll play two test matches, right? And five
And five
T20s.
T20s.
If India, instead of playing two 5-day test matches, would have played three 4-day test matches instead of 10 days, 12 days of cricket.
I would have been
Exactly.
on
And
board.
that is something that I keep thinking about before dissing the whole idea of 4-day test
Mm.
matches.
But my only worry is whether the intentions are to have more test matches or to have more of the T20 stuff. So the intentions are what they have to make it clear, which they have not been able to articulate very well. The reason for having a 4-day test. Has there been any clear
Yeah,
articulation of
I
that
don't
yet?
think, I mean, the only एंड्रयू स्ट्राउस का एक comment आया था जो क्रिकबज़ ने publish किया था, and I think it pointed at the fact that broadcasters would like it, and which makes me think that it's a, unless of course there is Virat Kohli and there is.
And in that case, if the broadcasters are the ones requesting for this, which means they largely want fewer days of test
Yeah,
cricket in the calendar, which automatically means that this two test series becoming a three test series is not the most likely thing to happen, even if you have 4-day tests. So
I agree. I
probably that's
agree
where
that potentially it will just free up more space for something like extra days for an IPL, second IPL or whatever.
300.
Um, and keep
Hmm.
if you keep thinking about some reasons for the 4-day tests, please let's just keep talking about it. But I also want to add the 100 into our discussion. We've never talked about it, so let's just talk. So in similar vein, later this year,
First of all, what about the
I think they're
jerseys?
cooler. And again, I'm a self-hating NRI, as has been mentioned earlier.
Chips ka packet. There, I thought like till now the IPL had the most tacky
I
jerseys.
think Big Bash still
Uh,
has the best jerseys.
the Big Bash has the best jerseys. People might hate us for this, but IPL has the worst
You,
sense of aesthetics.
yeah, did you see the Money kids wedding? Like, uh, Paisa,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
class.
But why is the same aesthetic being followed across different teams?
Do
That
you
is something I
remember
don't
the?
get. Sorry that we are
Hmm.
digressing from the 100, but I think this
Do you
the
remember
100
the
brought me to this.
helmets
So
the KKR team used in the
yeah,
yeah?
the golden helmets. Even now, why do all these teams find it so cool to wear this golden sleeve shirts and gold wherever they can fit in? Mumbai has the most gaudy jersey
I
in all
किसी
of
ने somebody
sport.
compared
Matlab,
said that Mumbai ki jersey reminds them of like the Matki Ford. Yeah,
yeah, I
exactly.
was the one who said that. It, basically, like if you
Hmm.
go to Bombay during the END, uh, you have these cheap
Hmm.
local politicians, as how Jitendra Awad and people like him. They have their own Matki Ford competitions and they have their own jerseys. So they look very much like the IPL jerseys. It feels like they have lifted straight design elements straight from there. Mukesh bhai. But do you remember IPL had decent aesthetics to begin with in the first year? थोड़ा बहुत तो कभी कभी मुंबई का
I
jersey in the
liked the
start was okay.
exactly,
It
and
looked
I
like
liked that jersey. My
Barcelona.
favorite jersey was Deccan Chargers. Yeah.
Deccan Chargers in the second year. So Mumbai had Barcelona like so from the 100. I think that is what strikes me. The 100 has gone to another extreme with this fluorescent colored shirts and stuff like that. So you know the
Who's
target
the target
audience for that
audience?
basically in England. It's basically an entire generation of kids who don't relate to cricket as a
So,
cool sport.
how much will the color of the jersey change that? So yeah, here's my question: who's saying this? And I'm sure there is some research gone into making the 100.
Hmm.
But again, the same question that I said
Hmm.
about the 4-day test. Who is saying कि यार 120 balls थोड़ा ज़्यादा हो रहा है? अगर तुम 20 बॉल कम करके 100 बॉल का दो इनिंग्स करेगा तो I will watch it. Who's
So the story goes that uh, English Cricket Board wanted some
Mhm,
cricket on free to air television,
mhm,
which is basically BBC. So and the only way they could get cricket on BBC was if it fit within the 3 hour window. So apparently, a full T20 game doesn't fit within the 3 hour window. So, in order to broker a deal with the BBC, which would have meant more money coming into English cricket in the long run to add revenue and stuff like that, and also having it on free to air has a bigger reach, which cricket in England has lost out in the past decade ever since the 2005 Ashes when Sky Sports became the broadcaster over
mhm.
Channel 4 in the past. So apparently the whole story of the 100 is this to fit cricket within the 3 hour frame which will give it BBC airtime. So that's why they started off with creating this new product. Also, they wanted to completely go away from the NatWest T20 Blast, which was more like a county cricket based setup as opposed to city based franchises. So, this is what I hear from a few podcasts, Sky Sports podcast and TMS and stuff like that.
Some of the things. I mean, again, my I just go back to this. Like How different is 120 balls to 100? And maybe I will be proved completely wrong. And maybe this is one of those new innovations that I say that only Westerners do and Indians don't. Maybe this is, but apparently ends will be changed
Mhm.
after. So each overs will be 5 balls per over, and ends will be changed every 10 balls. So
Mhm.
every up.
So, so even that is with an aim to make it quicker. So they're appealing to not the base which is already watching the sport, but they're appealing to kids who have never
And you
been
and a
watching
bowler,
cricket.
I mean, bowling
So
team can decide. Let's say I have Bumrah, right? I can say that so 20 overs, yeah, because each over is 5 balls, so 20 overs, 100 balls, right? Um, but I'm not entirely sure if they have a
hmm,
overs concept. But basically, each a bowler can bowl if once a bowler starts bowling, he can either stop after bowling 5 balls or he can bowl
hmm,
10 balls consecutively, and a bowler can bowl a maximum of 20 balls in a game.
hmm,
So let's say it's Bumrah.
hmm,
Uh, I can decide and I can
hmm.
just have him bowl the 10
So
like so it
yeah,
like in order to make cricket more simple, I think they will be complicating it more.
yeah, I think they're going to be complicating it more. But think of it, probably for people like us who
Mhm.
have grown up watching one kind of the sport, it might seem very jarring. But if you're a first time, like a 5-year-old kid getting to watch it on BBC, would it be as bad
No, but
if
that's
that is
not
the first
any
taste of
different
cricket
from
that you're getting?
2020, I
But
don't
my
think.
bigger worry is whether that will translate to mainstream. Yeah, no, no. But if the entire argument is that this gives it a slot on free to air, uh, doing this sort of, but I would again argue that even with T20, if you apply the same rule that
Yeah,
you
you could
change
potentially save
ends
a lot
only
of
once
time.
every 2 overs, so potentially you can save a lot of time even in conventional T20s. So that is, I don't think, something which has been answered. So the concept of overs changes, so and this might make cricket a much more crowded product, right? So you'll have like so many sub brands that you might end up confusing the audience. Like the casual viewer, what is the incentive for someone who is watching the 100 to again go and unlearn all that has been learnt in 100 to watch a T20 World Cup at the end of the year? So whether that will work is only time will tell. But otherwise, I like the idea of, okay, at least trying to get it back on free to air.
I think what will, and I think it will have I like the idea too. I agree with you. I also think what will happen is it will have an effect on 2020 cricket as well,
Hmm.
because it just like, and I haven't really, abhi tak, I will sound like an uncle. I haven't seen a T10 game, even
So
highlight.
neither have I.
I
Somehow
have like
cannot
e-
get myself to
even
watch
the
that crap.
idea. I haven't even clicked. Like I keep seeing YouTube links of
Hmm.
T10. I
And
haven't
apparently, it's quite a successful league, by the way.
So what I was saying is that I have seen scores and I know
Hmm.
that they have taken hitting to a completely like different
Hmm.
level even compared to 2020, and I think 100 will have an impact on 2020 cricket in the sense that the value of wicket um, decreases even more,
Yeah,
right?
Daleri
There's
आएगी
yeah,
में
Daleri
Daleri
आएगी
के बाद.
जी.
हाँ.
Um, so and going back to the initial point, I think this World Cup is going to happen after. I don't think 100 will have a lot of effect on this World Cup, but moving on, the next IPLs and the other T20Is, you will see that effect. And again, Indian players, which I understand BCCI's rationale of not having Indian players because they are their
Hmm.
brands. But we will basically see that now other teams like England and other players who are playing in these leagues will be scoring at a higher rate than Indian players.
I can definitely see death overs batting completely changing because 20 less balls in T20 is 1/5 of the game, right?
Yeah.
If you look at it that way.
Yeah.
Otherwise, in isolation, it is just 20 balls. But
Mhm.
If I just say that it is 20 balls, then it sounds like Lakshman Sivaramakrishna's commentary in that sense. So, but in a T20 game, it might be an entire innings, or someone like Andre Russell, it is like 70, 80
It's
runs,
reducing the 2020 game by 16%. So
16%,
that,
which is a lot.
yeah,
In that sense, it is a lot. And for someone like Russell, it is like people will be teeing off much faster,
which
and
I think we have talked about it before. I don't understand even in 2020 why are they not teeing off much faster than they are right now.
they are right. That is true. But then again, I genuinely, if something has to change in Indian cricket, if there is one thing I could pick, it is for a lot of our cricketers to play outside, man. Matlab,
That
in
will
any
not
of these
happen.
leagues, it might dilute your brand. I don't know how it is going to dilute your own brand. I don't think someone is going to stop watching the IPL just because uh, Kohli plays in the Big
And
Bash
I,
League.
uh, I don't agree with you on this.
Hmm.
And I will get whoever listens to it, I will get a lot of hate for what I'm going to say. But if Kohli, like if Indian players were open to playing outside,
Hmm. Hmm.
not everything changes. Now Indian firms are keying up to buy teams from the Big Bash and other
Elsewhere.
every other place because the team's base price is less, so they invest
Hmm.
less and they can invest more money in someone like Kohli or whoever they get, and they can. And now imagine Big Bash League where there is the top stars like Kohli and Rohit and Dhoni and I think Bumrah now
Bumrah.
playing in the Big Bash. I think just this one change will just lift Big Bash and move it up the IPL. The only thing that is saving the IPL right now and pouring in money is the fact that that is the only place where you can see all Indian players.
But is it not like the fan base? You have prime time TV for the IPL, like 7:30, 8 o'clock games, as opposed
The
to early
moment this
morning or
happens,
late
dude, the
afternoon.
moment this happens, let me tell you, the moment this happens, what happens is the Big Bash divides itself into two parts. One part is in Australia and the other part is in Dubai. Boom. I'm honestly that this is what is going to happen. In fact, I will go to the extent and say that the moment this happens, what someone like Big Bash does is that they increased their teams from currently from 6 to 8, and they add two international teams. One will be a mid Dubai based franchisee or something like that, and one will be like a New Zealand based franchisee. And they see this.
So that they can fit in more players from
There are
Asia.
so many
That
things that IPL does not do. I mean, and again, hate, I guess, but there is definitely a lack of creative idea when it comes to IPL. IPL by itself is a
this
copy of ICL. We never mention it.
ICL.
Nobody. It's like everybody has forgotten it. But IPL is not an original idea. It was ICL and from thread
It was reactionary,
exactly, and
basically.
everything else is
Hmm.
reaction. I mean, right? Very honest. Why do I was talking about 10 teams, right? There
Hmm.
is a possibility of having 10 teams. I will go and say, why don't we have a Dhaka based franchise and a Colombo based franchise at least?
I was going to tell you that. I was just going to add to it saying that the ICL was actually a grander
Yeah,
idea than IPL, given that it had a Lahore franchise, it had a Dhaka franchise, and it had, I think, a Colombo franchise. So at least given the current political scenario, at least you can have a couple of more
you can
franchises. But
you can have a.
again, the thing is about sharing the pie is not something BCCI is
I
good
don't
with.
think they even like it's going to increase the pie. To just imagine if all
No,
of
but they don't
Bangladesh
see
has
it
a
that way,
team
right?
to cheer
Because,
for in the IPL. That changes the money
hmm,
dynamics
yes,
completely. In fact,
completely.
recently I was listening to the ESPN Cricket Info's recent podcast with Monga, Fernando, and
Hmm,
Amar actually,
hmm,
and friend of the pot, as I can say. Um,
hmm, hmm.
basically, and they were talking about the relationship between Sri Lanka, Pakistan, and Bangladesh boards. And I was thinking,
Bangladesh. Hmm.
if Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Bangladesh board had a little more dimag, they could
Common sense.
start a league all
Asian
exactly with
T20 League.
these three, and that will I think generate at least 70% of as much money as IPL.
You know what? That would also,
Hmm.
the kind of spin-off tournaments that would come out of it. It could have like the IPL winner versus the Asian T20 League winner. Like
Yeah,
community
Yeah,
shield
yeah,
type
exactly.
matches.
I mean,
Start of season community shield
and right now
equivalent.
you are seeing this whole thing that is happening where Bangladesh is not ready to tour Pakistan. And again, I
Hmm.
feel that there is a lot of BCCI, invisible BCCI behind it. But
Hmm.
had Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, I will say Afghanistan and Nepal come together and formed an Asian Premier League or something, they uh,
You know
mm,
what? What at the very least we could
mhm.
still do, given that Afghanistan cricket, basically India is the nurturing body for
Mhm.
Afghanistan cricket right now. Have a Kabul-based franchise, given that Rashid Khan
Yeah,
and those people anyway play. Uh, I don't know, because that could still be a possibility, right? Even as a political statement, if at all you want to make one.
yeah, and then here's the thing, we don't yeah, yeah, I just forget Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. I mean, Sri Lanka Indian board has a good relationship with Sri Lanka, and I think Indian board has a good relationship with
Hmm.
Bangladesh. Imagine 8 teams from India,
Hmm.
one Dhaka based franchisee, one Colombo based franchisee, one Kabul based franchisee, and one franchisee from the West Indies.
There was this thought idea being floated around of a southern league, southern hemisphere league, which had teams from New Zealand, South Africa, and Australia. That got shelved very quickly.
Why?
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. I mean, I'm asking.
It didn't go ahead at all. So
The
the Big Bash
only
became a very big product, and then it didn't go through.
thing that I think about is the power and the clout of BCCI can only be challenged. So Bangladesh has a lot of loyal fans, and Bangladesh board is generating a lot of money.
Hmm.
Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan have more cricket fans. Nepal has a lot of cricket fans, and if these all of these can come together, they could potentially create a rival power structure compared to BCCI if they have, let's say, support of the Australians also.
Hmm.
I'm just saying this will not happen, and I'll tell you why this will not happen. Because the moment this happens, the Indian team says that it will not play any bilateral or test series with these teams.
Hmm.
Boom.
Yeah, which is basically the BCCI's trump card
Hmm.
in all these equations.
So going back to your original point, the reason that Indian players will never play in these leagues is the moment that that happens, IPL's value drastically reduces.
Which I'm
Um,
not still completely.
the only way that it does not happen is, and we've talked about this earlier, but I would really want this to happen, and this is a separate global body to be created that manages club cricket.
Hmm.
And if an Andre Russell plays for Kolkata Knight Riders, then he only plays for Kolkata Knight Riders, and he does not play for any other club. And then what?
You go ahead. Yeah.
And then you can potentially, like football, you can have potentially a global
Hmm.
exchange, buying and all of that, and then the value of Champions League
Hmm.
gets much better. Then IPL also survives because now you can still, compare to every other league, you can still make more money out of the IPL. So
Hmm.
now people spend more money in the IPL because Bumrah is playing for Mumbai Indians, and Bumrah unless somebody pays like an
Hmm.
enormous amount of money, Bumrah will be playing for Mumbai Indians,
Mumbai. Hmm.
and so I people will watch IPL, right?
Yeah.
So
This is not going to happen. Okay.
this is
Cricket,
a pipe dream.
cricket में तो there isn't even a proper players association, and the BCCI didn't have one for a really long time. So caught behind.
Caught behind a G. But so this is, I know we've just like every time we went to a different direction, but I think this was an interesting discussion
Hmm.
about the leagues.
The thing is,
And
we dream a lot about the sport. So the
yeah,
way we want to see it going, but it never takes that direction, sadly. There is this other
hopefully.
thing which I very recently
Mm,
had put out. I don't know whether it had any traction. It was about this idea of cricket in the Olympics often gets opposed by
associates, yeah.
this thing, right?
Mm,
BCCI and the big three are the ones opposing it. So why not make it a non-test playing nation centric event, cricket at the Olympics? That gives them an added incentive to play the sport. But don't see that happening either. So फिर से एक और बार caught behind.
So moving on, the last topic of the day. India will start. India will play an one day series with Australia, three one days. A lot of carbon footprint, which
Mm.
I don't personally like, but again, I am a hater.
In the middle of the Australian home season.
Yeah, that's the power of India. I hope all you bros feel good about it. But three one days, 14, 17, 19. Personally, I'm looking
Hmm.
forward to watching two players. One is Navdeep Saini from India, and the other is Labush Kagane, as Harsha
Labush
Vogle,
Khak,
as Harsha Vogle.
Labush Khak, Labush Khakne.
Yeah, Harsha Vogle ऐसे ही बोल रहा है. I
Hmm.
really want to see how these two perform. What about you?
I am looking forward to Smith coming back in one day cricket in India. Smith and Warner. So the last time they toured, they didn't have them, and I am genuinely looking forward to seeing how we bat against a full strength Australian bowling attack. Uh, Assuming they play both Stark and Cummins, hopefully, because we very rarely get to see one day cricket in which opposing sides play a full 11. So that has me sold after a very long time in watching some bilateral one day cricket. But sadly, a lot of it is in weekdays, right? So the first game is on a weekday again.
The first game is on the 14th of January, which is I think a
Yeah,
Wednesday.
Wednesday. So
Tuesday actually, next
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
So we have a series starting on a
And then
Tuesday.
we have a
Kya?
17th on Friday and then Sunday. So Friday and Sunday you'll have two games.
Hmm.
Tuesday there is a game. I really want to see how Navdeep Saini performs against the Australians
Against a good
better
batting lineup.
because
Yeah.
I really like the look of this kid. I can
Hmm.
say kid, he's younger than me, 5 years
Yeah.
younger.
Now we can, without sounding
Yeah,
condescending, we can use
yeah.
that term.
I
Yeah.
really like his look, and I really like how freely he's able to bowl Yorkers, which is, I think, one of the biggest difference between Mohammad Shami and Bumrah. Mohammad Shami is a great bowler, as we all agree, but I think
I would even say something controversial.
mm,
Shami might even be a better test bowler than Bumrah, a more skillful test bowler than Bumrah
potentially
right now.
yes. But when it comes to limited
Potentially,
overs cricket, my only thing is that there's nobody who can bowl Yorkers like Bumrah. And
Bumrah. Yeah.
Sani, it seems, is I'm again not comparing to Bumrah, which is strange because कल का लड़का है बुमराह. But
बुमराह ने डेब्यू जनवरी 2018 में किया है
uh,
so it feels like
uh,
a decade.
but I think Sani has a better Yorker and has better control over his Yorker than someone like Shami, which is why I would be very
Hmm.
interested to see him play. But my like the looking at the team, I think they will have Bumrah, Shardul, and Shami.
Oh no, no, oh no, don't go that.
No,
Don't go
I
down that
guess
road. That's a scary thought. Like if we go down that
I
track.
think that's
So
going to be the three fast bowlers, and then we will have one of अच्छा चहल है so
Kulcha.
I think we'll have Kuldeep Yadav and Ravin Jadeja,
Hmm.
and these will be our five
Hmm.
bowlers. And
Has Bandia come back?
Bandya
Not yet.
Bandya failed his fitness test boss. He's not even going to New Zealand. He was supposed to go to New Zealand with the A team, but he's not
Uh,
going to the New Zealand.
okay.
3D,
I would
3D
still
class is
like to
back.
see
3D
Shami.
class is going to New Zealand.
New Zealand. No. I would actually like to see all three. Shami, Bumrah, and Navdeep would be a fun attack to watch. Like that'll make me
I
wake up at
Me too.
3:30.
If Shami, Bumrah, and Navdeep are bowling as the three fast bowlers for India, I will watch them bowl.
Especially if you have like a run chase under lights
But
and you have
I,
these three bowling, that has me sold.
as of today, 11th January 2020,
Hmm.
I refuse to watch Shardul Thakur bowl.
Thakur play any form of cricket.
Sorry. He's thick, but that is all.
Someone yesterday was discussing the prospect of Shardul Thakur being an all-rounder,
Sanjay Bangar.
flying down to Australia late.
Sanjay Bangar.
Huh? Sanjay Bangar, right? Flying down to Australia later this year.
Don't laugh,
That
okay?
gave me
Don't laugh.
nightmares, man.
Don't laugh.
It
It
might
might
happen
happen.
given this
And
invention.
that is the reason that I think he might play in the one day series. because
My
he could
goodness.
potentially come be a good seven down, I think,
So, so the difference between me
or six
switching on Willow TV in the morning or
down.
not is basically this. If Shardul Thakur bowling to Steve Smith is the first thing I watch in the morning, not something I'm going to stick to. So I'll switch off very quickly.
I honestly like something that I find so unfair. W- They could have picked Mohammad Siraj. He's bowling beautifully in the Ranji
Yeah.
Trophy. I
Huh.
have been watching him play for Hyderabad, and he's bowling really well. And again, so I say this, but let me qualify. I would love for someone like Siraj to be debuted in a Test match first. Then,
Even with Navdeep Saini, I actually think
yeah,
he's
yeah, I
test
agree.
material.
I agree. He's
The lengths he bowls, there'll be days where he'll be hit around a lot, but I think he'll make for a very good test bowler, especially Australia, mein, given his lengths
I
and stuff like that.
think someone said, I think Harsha Bhogle said that he is might be going to New Zealand.
But I then that might be a little unfair on Umesh.
I mean, I don't think he'll
So
play, but he's
how do you,
going to.
hmm. You have Umesh, Shami, Ishant, नवदीप
Mhm.
एंड बुमराह, इनमें से दो भी मिल जाता हम लोगों को 90s में तो टू पार्टनर श्रीनाथ, we would have been very happy back then, right? Have like five of them. Unless we fit in all four fast bowlers in a test match in
I
New
think
Zealand, I don't
the
see.
reason that you see Shardul Thakur in the team is the reason that you did never saw that, because I think there was so one thing is the Ranji scheduling, and that is why we did an episode. Remember about cricket tweaks, and I was
Hmm.
talking about making Dilip Trophy the bigger tournament. Uh, when you're playing
Hmm.
Ranji
Hmm.
Trophy in a season, you're playing 10 teams, you're getting 3 day breaks, and you're playing every
Hmm.
week. Um, it's much
Hmm.
easier for a Shardul Thakur or a Praveen Kumar or a Bhuvneshwar Kumar to sustain themselves
Hmm.
than.
Rather than a
By
tearaway.
the way,
Yeah.
which reminds me, Cricinfo did recently in yesterday did an interview of Jaydev Unadkat, and
Who is Shardul Thakur left arm?
he said that I know that if I he's hoping to be part of the 2020 World Cup team, and and no disrespect, I hope he is if he bowls well, but he says that if I have to, don't laugh. He says that I have to bowl like Bumrah if I want to be there. So if he can, then he should be there.
So basically, if you have an attack of Shardul Thakur and Jaydev Unadkat, it is Rajasthan Royals का bowling attack.
धवल कुलकर्णी भी चाहिए.
धवल कुलकर्णी भी चाहिए उसके साथ में. That is some attack.
So basically, this is what happened. I think that is what happened through the night. Maybe I'm wrong,
Hmm.
but IPL has democratized cricket. That is something that you have to give credit to. I think had there been no IPL, you would still be seeing Dhawal Kulkarni and Jaydev Unadkat bowling for India.
सही बात बोला है आपने. बहुत बढ़िया. दलेरी से जो फास्ट बॉलिंग करता है वही फास्ट बॉलर है.
घुटनों में पानी भर रहा है, उसके बाद भी बॉलिंग होनी चाहिए.
हाँ.
पर एक और चीज बोल देता हूँ मैं, तीनों मुंबई,
हम्म.
राजकोट, बेंगलोर,
हम्म.
तीनों रोड हैं. तीनों रोड हैं.
मुंबई कभी कभी यू कैन हैव अ डस्ट बॉल, बट आई डोंट सी दैट हैपनिंग एटलीस्ट ये
तो
सीजन में तो. हाँ.
इट्स
हम्म.
तो like we should be fairer to our bowlers as well.
बेंगलुरु
But
में
it will
तो
be
पता नहीं यार अपना मिस्टर वड़ा पाव हिमसेल्फ रोहित शर्मा माइट स्कोर अ डबल हंड्रेड, नेवर नो.
actually Australia has two vice captains. I don't know how, like what exactly is
Is
the
Carey one of them?
Carey is a vice captain and Pat Cummins is a vice captain.
Oh, so Carey has been the vice captain ever since he debuted, by the way. I don't know how that works. Carey
Lee
debuted as
Jarmo,
a captain in T20, something like that.
George Bailey did too.
George Bailey did that, yeah. So, Australia, this is the thinking out of the box Australian way, basically. They are grooming Carey to be the next captain,
Who will be
basically.
our next captain?
We have no clue. I don't
I
see
think
anyone on the horizon.
Shreyas
Shreyas
Iyer.
Iyer.
Yeah, we are grooming him to be our next captain. Shreyas Iyer will become our captain, and then finally Kumble can be our coach.
Yeah. Caught behind moment, eh? Caught
Behind
behind.
Edgy.
इसी के
कॉट
साथ खत्म करते हैं
हाँ,
कॉट भी आए।
तो इसी के साथ खत्म करते हैं। आई थिंक आई एम लुकिंग फॉरवर्ड टू दैट सीरीज, होप फिंगर्स क्रॉस्ड शार्दुल ठाकुर
डजंट प्ले
if he plays then he fucking beats AB de Villiers fastest 100 record.
विद द बॉल।
नहीं, with the bat was, come on, with the bat
मोर लाइकली विद द बॉल।
कुछ 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 viability चाहिए, because literally like he does, like Deepak Chahar at least swings the ball, man, and Deepak Chahar is good in the death also.
शार्दुल ठाकुर हिमसेल्फ बाउंसेस मोर देन द बॉल, मतलब
I didn't want to say that, but
इन
that
हिज
guy got
एक्शन।
some booty.
सो हम लोगों ने कॉट बिहाइंड बोलने के बाद भी आज 3 बार कंटिन्यू किया है। सो
कोई बात नहीं, चलो अभी so hoping for a good series and final caught behind.